Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into it, focusing on the future of education.
That's right. We're looking at the first episode of the Future Class podcast.
And our goal here is to understand, why people are saying the traditional school model needs a rethink. What's actually being proposed?
Yeah, because for so many of you listening, the path probably feels familiar, right? School, get good grades, graduate, land a job. It's sort of the standard blueprint.
But the argument we're exploring today from Future Class is that this formula, well, it's starting to crack, isn't it?
It really is showing some significant strains. That's the core idea.
Okay, so let's unpack that, this strained formula. What are the main reasons given for why it's not quite hitting the mark anymore?
Well, one huge factor they point to is just the speed of technology. It's accelerating so fast.
Faster than curriculums can possibly keep up, I imagine.
Exactly. New fields, new tools, they pop up constantly. And then there's AI.
Right, artificial intelligence, it can write essays, solve math problems,
Yeah.
even act as a tutor, yeah.
It can do all of that, which, fundamentally changes the game. It makes you question the role of the teacher, the need for rote memorization.
Especially when you have, almost unlimited information just available online.
Precisely. That access challenges the whole traditional emphasis on just knowing facts.
So it's not just about academic prep then. What are the other consequences? What else does Future Class highlight?
Well, they touch on some pretty concerning things, like rising stress and mental health issues among students.
Yeah, I hear about that a lot.
And creativity. So important now, right. But it can get sidelined when the focus is purely on standardized tests.
The graduates might know the theory, but
But they feel unprepared for actual life. Managing money, navigating complex relationships, just adapting to change.
things that require flexibility, maybe divergent thinking.
Exactly. The old model was about efficiency, maybe not so much about navigating ambiguity, which is kind of the norm now.
It makes you wonder where this old model even came from. You mentioned Future Class goes into the history a bit.
Yes, and it's pretty crucial context, actually. They argue pretty strongly that our current systems, they're largely leftovers from the Industrial Revolution.
Ah, okay. Designed for a different era's needs.
Totally. Think factories, routine jobs. The main goals back then were things like obedience, efficiency, conformity.
Making good workers for the assembly line, essentially.
That was kind of the idea. You needed people who could follow instructions, stick to the process.
Which feels miles away from what's needed today. What skills does Future Class say are actually valuable now?
Oh, it's a different world. They talk about needing complex problem solvers, critical thinkers, people with real emotional intelligence.
Empathy, resilience, that kind of thing.
Yes, because everything's so fast-paced,
Yeah.
always changing. You need to be adaptable. That wasn't the number one priority in the industrial model.
Okay, the picture of the problem is becoming clearer. So what's the vision? What does Future Class suggest we should be focusing on for, the future class?
Right. Their whole thing is exploring these key trends shaping learning. AI comes up again, but this time thinking about how to use it in the classroom.
Not just as a challenge, but as a tool.
Exactly. Like personalized tutors, adaptive learning platforms, if used thoughtfully, of course.
And they look at specific places too, right? Countries doing innovative things.
Yeah, they mentioned Finland, Estonia, Singapore, places known for trying different approaches as sort of potential models to learn from.
But it's not just about the tech, is it? Are they talking about changing how we teach and learn too?
Oh, absolutely. A big push for project-based learning, getting you, the learner, hands-on with real problems.
Makes sense. More engaging.
Yeah, definitely. And a huge emphasis on those quote-unquote soft skills, communication, teamwork, ethics, critical thinking.
Plus digital literacy, I assume. Knowing how to navigate the online world.
Crucial. That includes evaluating information, understanding privacy, and really importantly, looking after students' emotional well-being. That's a big piece.
It sounds like they're taking a much broader view. Education isn't just school buildings.
That's a really key takeaway. They see it as this lifelong thing, extending way beyond K-12 or college.
And who are they getting these insights from?
A whole mix. Teachers in the trenches, students sharing their experiences, parents, plus the tech folks building the new tools, trying to get that wide perspective.
That's good to hear. And it's not all just theory, right? They mentioned actual changes happening now.
Yeah, definitely. They give concrete examples, schools trying out portfolios instead of just grades to show a wider range of skills.
Okay.
More student-directed learning, where you have more say in what and how you learn.
Breaking down the classroom walls, maybe?
Exactly. Connecting students with mentors out in the world, businesses, community projects. I think they shared one story about a school ditching grades entirely and seeing engagement just soar.
Wow. And AI, which we talked about as part of the problem,
Yeah.
it can actually be part of the solution, too.
If it's used ethically, yes, the podcast stresses that. With care, it could make learning more personal, more accessible, maybe more engaging than, just listening to a lecture.
So when we pull all this together,
Hmm.
what are the big questions Future Class wants us to ask? What's the main message for us thinking about learning?
I think the core message is really about the need to step back and fundamentally question what education is for.
Okay.
And that means really listening to students, teachers, parents, everyone involved.
Seeing it less as just a system?
And more as a human experience, focused on growth, connection, well-being, and the starting point for changing things. It's just asking better questions, having these kinds of conversations.
Right. So recapping our deep dive into this first Future Class episode, the argument is strong that our current education system, with its Industrial Revolution roots, is really struggling.
Yeah, struggling to keep up with tech, with the complex skills needed today. It really suggests we need a fundamental rethink of how we approach learning.
And for you listening, hopefully, you now have a clearer sense of why this reform is seen as so vital and some of the directions it might go.
From AI integration to more personalized, real-world learning, focusing on those essential human skills.
So as you go about your own learning, here's a final thought to chew on. With AI advancing so rapidly, what's one truly human skill you think will be absolutely essential for the future? Maybe something that isn't top of the list in schools today.
That's a good one. Something to ponder.